that for me. It's okay. Crazy.
And that's Mr. Bungle, ladies and gentlemen. No. Greetings and welcome to another episode. I apologize for my colleague, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Cranked and Ranked is the show that you have tuned into or you're listening to on your podcast platform of choice. If you're new to this show, we are a show where we talk a lot about music, and usually the conversations are formed by us ranking discographies of artists, really like, whoever we feel like we want to talk about. But, it's a lot of rock music and metal.
Yeah. Rock and metal.
Yeah. And as usual, Old Head, your host here with me as always, Mr. Eddie Sparxx.
Sup, motherfucker.
Hey, that was nice.
Yeah.
And before we begin, I just want to say hello to all of the pretentious jerk-offs that will be clicking on this video, because we are going to be talking about Mr. Bungle. Probably is that our shortest discography we've ever done? 4 albums, Mr. Bungle.
Very well could be. I know we've done some that are like 5. But 4 is definitely the shortest we've ever done.
Yeah. And I'm saying hello to the pretentious jerk-offs because it's been made very clear to me that a lot of people that are really into Mr. Bungle are also really into themselves. Because it's kind of like
there's a lot of songs about wanking in this discography, so I guess it would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, Mr. Bungle is quite like Pantera. Now hear me out. Whenever somebody comes to you and says, man, I love Pantera, you're always like, I love them too, but this could go either way right now. Like you could literally be an awful person or a cool person that just happens to like Pantera. Mr. Bungle is the same way. I've met people that are great, thoughtful music listeners, and they understand how different music and different fan bases work, and they also really enjoy Mr. Bungle. And then there are other people whose heads are so far up their own asses that I don't even know if I ever had an actual conversation or if it's just them. I don't know what it is, but there is a level of pretentiousness to some people who are really into Mr. Bungle that is frightening. So I just want to get that out of the way because we're not those people. In fact, we are people that enjoy metal. So I'm sorry. I apologize that we're going to talk about Mr. Bungle today because everybody knows Mr. Bungle has nothing to do with metal. But yeah.
It's irony, dude. You don't understand irony.
Honestly, to be honest, like this week preparing for this episode, on a really old Faith No More album ranking I did 3 years ago, somebody commented and saying that, they love Faith No More, but Bungle's a much better band because they're more diverse. And then their final line, just to ruin it, that was fine. If you want to say you love Bungle more because they're more diverse, then stop there. But like I said, head far up his own ass. He had to ruin it in the end by saying they're probably just too diverse for metalheads. I'm just like, all right. Yeah.
That's a wide generalization.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is like, you have to remember, like I did a review of this album right here, The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny demo, after it came out. Very excited about the album. And then there was one guy that commented, and he was mad that I used the word weird to describe their music. And it's really because I I'm a normal ass dude, and I'm trying to communicate to normal ass people. And so sometimes to break things down and say, like, look, if you don't know this band, let me throw out the word weird, because if you don't know this band, it's probably something you're going to think. But he claimed that they go ahead.
I was just going to say, and let's be real, right? Mr. Bungle is great because they're so fucking weird. Like,
well, this guy claimed that they weren't weird. They were actually ahead of their time, which is a weird statement to make, because we all know it's become so popular to make music that sounds like Mr. Bungle these days, right? Yeah. That's a weird phrase to use, first off. But he said that their music was specifically mocking metalheads. And I'm like, that seems weird. And and I think his other statement was he claimed that they were just a bunch of jazz kids who were showing off, and metal fans did not like Mr. Bungle. And all of that stuff is complete bullshit. Like, well, okay, except for the part that they were in jazz band. Sure, they did that. But they have gone on record saying that they were into metal. All three of the core guys that are in the band.
The first thing they ever fucking recorded was like a Sepultura-esque death thrash demo.
But this guy was saying that they were doing it to make fun of metal. They put all that work into it just to make fun of metal.
Right, so they put together 40 minutes of the best thrash album that no one ever heard until 30 years later.
That's because you're not smart enough to get it. It's the biggest con ever played. It's just, they recorded this long ass metal thing in order to fuck with the metal fans.
Damn. Don't I look stupid? I'll go kill myself now. And I remember he responded back with something even fucking more pretentious, but I basically told him, I go, look, like I was a fan back in the day and I also liked Mr. Bungle. I am a metalhead. Everything what you're saying is complete bullshit if you know anything about the band. I'm not saying that they didn't poke fun at some aspects of metal, because I think a lot of people did, But yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at, is the fact I want to get these people already to turn this video off, because I want to be able to have like an actual human discussion with you about Mr. Bungle. Mm-hmm. Damn right. And the thing is as well, like that here's something that always sticks in my mind, because I did always kind of feel like, how does Patton truly feel about certain things, because he is a complex character.
True.
And he has a very diverse range, right? Completely wildly insane vocal range, 6 octaves, I think it is. It's nuts. But here's the thing. I always thought to myself, there's always like a sardonic, sarcastic edge to like his every move. Yeah. So it's always that thing of, is he sincere or is he not? But that's just part of the charm, A. But B, something that lays to rest the whole thing of they were just taking the piss out of metal. Well, for a start, there's a fucking interview somewhere where Mike Patton says he doesn't trust anyone who doesn't like Slayer. So, that's a dude that hates metal.
But that's okay. That's a band that's okay to like, apparently. So I don't know either. We'll get that out of the way, but
we don't make the rules, huh?
No, we definitely do not. For those of you who don't know, Mr. Bungle is a band started by Mike Patton and some of his buddies, but this was prior to him being in Faith No More. But after Faith No More broke big, he was able to get Mr. Bungle a record deal and do their proper debut album. So it was like, everybody at this point, it's so weird to say a side project from Mike Patton, because is there any, there's nothing, everything is like a side project or everything is a real project. Like it's at this point, there's no main band.
Patton himself is a project. Like, and he's just lent his voice and talents to just a shitload of stuff.
Yeah, he's done so much cool shit, and to be fair, like, there are people that are like big Mike Patton fans out there that love everything he's done. I'm going to admit that there are some things that he's done that I go, this is like not as good, and I don't even want to purchase this. But the big ones, the Faith No More, Mr. Bungle. I like some. When it comes to like Tomahawk and stuff like that, some of it's really good, and some of it I'm like, this isn't really that great. The one project of his that I love that I wish that he would revisit is Peeping Tom. Just because I was like, I like the idea of him saying like, I'm going to make like a record of what I think is like radio pop music through my lens. And it's just a super enjoyable album. I saw him on that tour, and it was like so much fun. The band he had put together for that, and the girl that did beatboxing through the whole show. They were fucking great. Anyway, this is gonna be the vibe of, because it's the vibe of Mr. Bungle for the most part. We're gonna kind of be all over the place, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I don't even remember where I was. We're just starting this fucking show.
Yeah. We haven't even done the where we came in on Mr. Bungle yet. So
we can do that. So I've said it many times before. I was a gigantic Faith No More fan when The Real Thing came out. I was in junior high when that album came out, and it was a huge thing for me. I was such a big Faith No More fan that like I recorded every appearance that they had on television. So I had a VHS that had the music videos from when they would premiere or whatever, or when they would come on. Then I would have, whenever they played talk shows, like they played Arsenio Hall and other stuff like this. It also had award show stuff like MTV, whatever it was. Whenever there was a place where I knew Faith No More was going to be, it was recorded on that VHS. I don't know where the fuck it is now, but I was just really into that band, and I think it connected with me because I liked heavy music. I'd already gotten into thrash and some other stuff, but I guess that was probably around the same time as me getting into thrash. But I liked heavier stuff, but I also felt like an outsider. Even to this day, we've talked about it. Even with metal, I've always felt like I don't even really fit in there. Even though I like some shit that's just, some of the stuff that I like, you'd be like, oh, that guy's just a metalhead. Well, yeah, but in many ways, I also don't fit in the world of metalheads. And Faith No More was that band that was like, man, this is like a merging of things that I like. I liked hip hop. I liked, heavy music, but also it was played by this group of people where you'd see their picture and you'd be like, this is the strangest collection of people. and somehow it works, and it just feels like music that I had been kind of waiting to hear. And so when the Mr. Bungle album first came out, the music video for Travolta, or quote unquote, I guess it's called now, right? Was not played on MTV, but the local access television station there was a show where they played all sorts of shit you couldn't see anywhere else. And I saw the Mr. Bungle video for Travolta.
No way.
Well, I don't even know if it was called Travolta at that. They may have already changed the name. I don't know how quickly that happened in the process of them changing the name. But anyway, I just remember having the self-awareness to be like, I think this is a little bit over my head. But the one thing that I do remember thinking was, I go, oh, this is Mike Patton sings differently. And what I was hearing was him singing with his natural voice instead of the affected thing that he had done on The Real Thing. Well, for most of The Real Thing, some of it he didn't do that. But you get so used to that sort of nasally thing that he was doing at the time.
You want it all, but you can't have it.
Or the one that you do sometimes, that blah, 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 blah. So when I first heard it, like I was like, oh, that's interesting that he sings that way. But as we would find out, that's pretty much his natural voice. That's how he sounds. He still does his little things here and there that make it unique. So honestly, like I knew who they were, and I heard the album, but it took a few years for me to like fully get into it, because I was like, man, there are things on this that I really like, and other things that I feel like I'm just not smart enough for. But I came around eventually, because like my musical taste also expanded even further. And so things started to make more sense to me. And then I've been a fan of theirs ever since. I won't get into like specifics, because I'll get into like what I'm actually talking about with the ranking of the albums. But Where was your introduction?
Pretty much the same as you, to be fair, just 20 odd years on. It
Yeah.
was really, I was about 14 when I discovered Faith No More, and I was really digging it. And then my
Mhm.
uncle comes around. He says, "Hey, do you know Mike Patton has a bunch of other bands? You should check out Mr. Bungle." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Checked it out, and I was like, "Whoa!" like, because immediately it struck me obviously the clown holding the match. I was like, "What am I in for here?
Yeah.
This looks like it's heavy, but it looks both like unsettling but also fun, like because the thing is like it's a blue sky behind
Yeah.
the clown, so I'm kind of like, should I be scared or is he just going to do something really fucking cool? And like that pretty much sums up that album. uh
Next.
yeah, so but yeah, this actually segues really well. So should we do you just want to get into the ranking?
Yeah. So to preface it, for those of you who are, Bungle fans, we're only ranking the studio albums because we thought about like, oh, should we just do the original demos as well? But like I honestly don't like having to go to like YouTube or other places to like find stuff to listen to. I'd rather I want it to be good quality and easier for me to digest while I'm
Yeah.
taking my notes. So I've heard all four of the original demos, but I'm like, yeah, let's stick to. There's going to be a lot to talk about, so let's stick with the four full length albums that they released, and so here we go. So yeah, only four albums. So
Yeah.
we're just going to let the tangents roll whenever they happen. But as usual, throw it over to Mr. Eddie Sparxx to start us off with his number 4 Mr. Bungle album.
Cool. So my number 4 Mr. Bungle album is Disco Volante from 1995.
It's just because you're not smart enough to understand the
Yeah.
sound.
I knew you were going to say that as well, because that of all of their albums, this is the one where I do get that vibe where I am like, this is like arguably the most insane fucking thing I've ever heard. Like it's cool, but it's the only one on here where I have to second guess whether or not I'm in the mood to sit through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like the rest of them, I go into them with a lot of conviction, and this one, I go into it and I think, fuck, man, 10 years on, and I still don't know if I'm ready. you
Yeah.
know, because like, okay, I'm gonna jump into the track by track. I mean, everyone I went to high school with is dead. A song title that has sadly not aged very well. Nevertheless, yeah, nevertheless, the first time I heard this, I was like coming off of hearing the debut Mr. Bungle album,
Yeah.
the first thing I thought to myself within a minute of hearing this, I was like, okay, wait, hold up. Fucking, what's the, what? What the fuck?
You and
Yeah,
everybody that worked at the record label.
yeah. Because, like, this opener is just straight up pure fucking sludge noise. And
Mhm.
I went into it as a 14-year-old foolishly expecting another funk metal at a carnival album from a band that literally had done nothing but left turns up to this point,
Mhm.
and they were still doing it here. Chemical Marriage has a little bit of the residual carnival spookiness going on, but it is a significant jump into far more experimental territory. Carry Stress in the Jaw is fucking awesome. Like,
Mhm.
the drumming on this is probably one of the most intense things I've ever heard, and it's the subtlety that gets me, that only adds further to that like scary tension. Like, to play shit that's fast quietly is something that I, to this day, as a drummer, I'm still wrapping my fucking head around. Because
Yeah.
like, you hit a cymbal, it's loud,
Yeah.
but to be hitting it at that speed with that subtlety, like, I'm gonna be honest, I'm much more in the realms of a fucking Lars than I am anywhere near a jazz guy, right?
Yeah.
I'm a very caveman drummer. I'm much more of a Mike Borden than I am a Danny Heifetz. Is it? Is he the one?
On this one, I believe so.
Yeah.
I should know that, but it's like,
Yeah. Fuck, man. Like, that's the thing. And also, Mr. Bungle live compared to the album.
Oh yeah.
Damn, dude. Like, they'll change shit up, and how they know what they're doing from night to night is beyond me. There's some
Well, I mean,
galaxy brain shit.
You have to remember, like, you think about like albums like Disco Volante, like I can't separate myself from the musician, songwriter, band member in me, because all I can think of is like how complicated it gets sometimes just trying to teach somebody and arrange songs that I had written that weren't even really that difficult. So I just keep thinking of like them in some sort of practice space or studio hacking out like how these songs are going to go. And then I think about, well, what part of this was like original, what part of it came through studio and experimentation. And so like, I kind of feel for like your average music listener, because like those people are just as important, but I wonder what it feels like to be completely divorced from that part of it. Like you've never written a song or played an instrument or tried to arrange something with a group of people that aren't you and aren't in your head. And I'm just like, how insane. I mean, so it's clearly they were insanely good musicians. So translating that live, I've always just been like, well, of course they're fucking geniuses.
Yeah. It's like, there's guys like me who, I'm a writer before I am anything else, really. Like, I know I can sling some riffs together and put together a pretty rocking song.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to like the improvisational, like jazzy shit that they throw out sometimes, I'm like, how did you even know what beat to come back on, motherfucker? Like, some of this stuff is so off the rails, but completely controlled. It's mental.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got something like Desert Search for Techno Allah, which is one of the best song titles I've ever had the pleasure of reading out on this show. And it also sounds exactly how you'd think, even though it's still also unexpected in a way. But Violenza Domestica, very cinematic, very arty. It was at this point in the record where I thought to myself, maybe I'm not as cultured as I thought I was. But then you get After School Special, which is a relatively normal song before going into some of the most unsettling shit yet with the Stop Touching Me stuff. Phlegmatics, more Nutso Mode stuff. Mamishka Mouse Squaz.
Close enough.
Yeah. This song feels like they watched an episode of Tom and Jerry, honed in on the music and said challenge accepted. Like, it really does remind me of a lot of their stuff. Gives me that cartoon vibe of, like, if you really listen to some of the music in a cartoon, incredibly difficult to pull off. Like it's goddamn, dude. But man, see, leading up to this point, it's all left turns. Like, and just when you think there's like another thing, there's a jump scare in this song as well at the end, isn't there? Is it this one? First time I heard this album was driving at night by myself along like a deserted road, right? When that first run ever through this album, when that came in, I was like, whoa, oh, holy shit. Nearly lost control of the fucking car. So Mr. Bungle almost killed me.
I also, if I remember right, this might be the song that years and years ago, we were at a friend's house listening to it. And at a certain point in the song, the CD started to skip, but it skipped exactly on a beat.
Yeah.
And so for a minute we were like, did we forget that this is how the song actually goes? Do they do a repeaty thing here? Because I wouldn't put it past them. So it was like us sitting there for like 5 minutes going, I think this is I think something's wrong with the CD. But it was so on point that I'm all like, how did I forget this? That there was a 5-minute skip part on
Yeah. That is one of those things though, like, and then they hit us with the bends, which is this sprawling collection of 10 different and mostly instrumental sections. Then you get Backstroking, which is like a Nine Inch Nails interlude track from the 50s.
That is that's I mean, I get what you're saying, but that is like that's a lot to wrap your head around. 9 Inch Nails from the 50s. Okay.
Yeah, it's strange. Like, oh man, Platypus is like they put Chuck Schuldiner and the Ed, Ed and Eddie soundtrack in the same room. Merry Go Bye Bye actually has some like foreshadowing of the sound of California,
yeah,
which would be their next record. You know, obviously because it's this album though, they decide to veer off into a level of prog metal insanity that I have no hope of keeping up with. And then finally you get Noises, which is the hidden track, which is just them fucking around. But you know, it's definitely in the top, if not the most nutso mode album I've ever heard in my life.
It's got to be one of the most bizarre albums ever to be put out by a major label.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, if we're talking majors.
Yeah, that's it's pretty great though. So yeah, no, I'm with you. Because this is also my number 4.
Okay.
But it's really tough ranking these albums because I had to like actually just think about the enjoyment level that I have and try to not be so nitpicky about little things, because you know, if you start nitpicking and paying attention to the little things, there's so many really impressive little things that I'm like, all right, this is I gotta just like let things go and go with the vibe. How do I feel? And this was the one. Really, the only reason why this goes at number 4 for me is because out of the 4 albums, this has the least repeat listen qualities for me.
Yeah.
It isn't an album that I look at the cover and go, fuck, I want to hear that right now. I'm sure there's probably some of you that feel differently, and that's fine. But out of the 4, this is the one I'll go to the least. You know, it's I guess you'd say it's the most experimental. You said a word that I thought was appropriate, and I say just take the Xperia part off of it. It's just fucking mental. The entire album. But you know, at this point, we got to mention, you know, the core of the band that's still there today, with Trevor Dunn on bass and Trey Sparxx on guitar. I mean, they all play different things too, and Mike Patton obviously doing multiple things and vocals. Those guys are they're like a higher class of musician and everything, because it's a level that I would never. One, I didn't desire to get to that level as a musician and songwriter, because that's not how I feel. I wouldn't enjoy being in a band like Mr. Bungle. But at the same time, I look at them and go, well, you are the guys to, like, you know, the bar is set up here for like the things that you can get away with and the things that you can do while still sounding like an amazing band and not just a bunch of fucking noise. Although I'm sure there are some people that to this, especially this album, a lot of it probably does just seem like a bunch of noise. But once again, like those opinions are valid because that's part of the audience. The audience is everybody out there. So just like, you know, I wouldn't want the pretentious folks to be like, you know, why are you using the vocabulary you're using to talk about this album? I'd be like, well, go fuck yourself. That's my new vocabulary. But at the same time, I can't look down on somebody who knows way less than I do about music and go, well, you just don't understand this album, because I'm like, well, that's relative. And it's not, you know, it gets too complicated with music like this. We literally just came from doing Boston, which is like the easiest shit to like wrap your head around. Like, here's what they're going for. Here's what to expect. Here you go on a silver platter. And now we're at Mr. Bungle. But I think the thing that makes this album unique is that the experimental aspects, like the genre merging and hopping and all of that stuff, it almost seems like it's spread out over the entire album as opposed to track by track, the varying levels of that happening. This is one where I almost feel like not just musically, but everything about this album, I just feel like all rules were just thrown out of the window. I do enjoy that aspect of it. Some of it is, really impressive and enjoyable, but I think I had to boil it down to the fact that the performances and experimental aspects and some of the odd yet perfect kind of choices they make for things, sometimes those aspects are what's enjoyable and instead of an actual song being enjoyable. So compared to the other three, coming from a guy that's like, I like songs, this one has the least amount of like a memorable song. It's memorable moments, but I swear to God, you could play me a moment from it and I'd be like, well, I think I know what song that comes from. I'm not quite sure. Is it Carry Stress in the Jaw? I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just it doesn't have that kind of quality. And so that's why I'd just be like, well, okay, this is a personal preference. It has to boil down to personal preference. Disco Volante. By the way, this was from 1995. I don't know if we mentioned that.
Same year as King for a Day by Faith No More. So this is same kind of era.
Yeah. Which to some people, that album is very experimental. And I'm like, well, that it's very, we put them next to each other. That one, that's not. So it's a great album. And I really enjoy when, I say this a lot. I love it when bands don't give you what you expect or try something unusual or different. And I mean that all the way across the board. I mean that Metallica doing Load or Mr. Bungle doing Disco Volante. Just giving me something different or taking a chance or just being like, fuck it, whatever. And I like that. So I really like this. Needless to say, I really like the album. Something had to go forth. So I went with my gut about like, well, I'm a fan of songs, and there's the song aspect is not as memorable on Disco Volante as it is on the remaining three albums. So that leads us into number 3, Mr. Bungle album.
I will say that the big thing that I always remember from Disco Volante is that bit in Carry Stress in the Jaw where it goes wah 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 wah. I like that part.
Yeah.
And, and platypus. But yeah. Right. What number 3? Let's move the Bungle train forward a little bit.
All right.
Next station. Okay, so my number 3 is the most recent offering with Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny.
Okay.
That's my number 3.
Were you waiting for me to say something?
I kind of usually do. Usually you go, all right.
Oh, yes. Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny, awesome album. So here we go.
I mean, we're already in the bronze medal zone. So this is the most straightforward of any of their albums. And that is because it's just thrash metal in the realms of Slayer and Sepultura, but with this sardonic sense of humor running throughout. There is still the Bungle mentality. They've just honed in, kind of like what we mentioned on the 9 Inch Nails episode a couple weeks ago, with honing in, having that palette, but honing in on one thing and really focusing on that.
Yeah.
And I suppose,
it's probably also good for those who don't know to point out that this is a re-recording of their original demo from 1986. Only it came out in 2020. This is also my number 3. Let's just fucking have a discussion about this album. Cool. At this point, I feel like our ranking could be identical, but we'll find out.
It is.
But Yeah, so this was before you get into your track by track, to preface when this album came out, it was completely unexpected to me.
Yeah.
Because there was those rumors that Mr. Bungle is going to get back together, and I go, oh, okay, cool. And so in my brain, I go, Mr. Bungle, Mike Patton, Trey Sparxx, Trevor Dunn, last album, California. Here's what we're going with. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, they're getting back together, and Scott Ian and Dave Lombardo are going to be in the band.
Yeah.
By the way, clearly not metal fans. Why would they have Scott Ian and Dave Lombardo in their band? Because they hate metal.
Famously in like a 88 interview, they all said something along the lines of "fuck Slayer and Anthrax." The both of them fucking suck. Like,
but yeah, so they they announced that. And I was just wrapping my head around that. And then they played their reunion concerts. And I remember like somebody posted the set list and the videos. And I went, wait, they didn't play like anything off of any of their albums. They just played their original demo, the metal demo, with some cover songs and other things. And I was just like, this is so Mr. Bungle, just to be like, yes, we're getting back together. You expect us to all be, but no, we're not. We're gonna be. That's Mr. There to go. That's just take that portion and just say Mr. Bungle, and then have that, and then that's their music. No, but the fact that they're just like, no, you got, because I don't know if anybody knew that. So I just imagine all of these pretentious fuckholes all coming to the show, just being like, you just wait for like the jazziness that you're going to be hearing, and it's literally just metal for an hour. And I'm just like, and I was just like, bravo, gentlemen, bravo. And so, I was like, well, that's really cool. And then the next announcement was, oh, by the way, their new album is going to be a complete re-recording of the metal demo. And I was just like, I was just like, so if you're an actual fan of Mr. Bungle, this is very appropriate and very cool. But very quickly, you found all of these douchebags coming out being like, why do they have to do that? I don't want metal fans getting into our music. So I'm sorry, I'm really harping on these people, but that's because they're fucking annoying and awful human beings. But anyway, track by track, let's get into this. So it's thrashy. You got Scott Ian, you got Dave Lombardo, you've got metal, you've got shit written by teenagers, played by old men.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing as well. I want to preface for anyone who's going to bring this up, famously on this show, we are not a fan, generally speaking, of bands re-recording their own material.
Nope.
However, if it is a 4-track demo tape that sounds like it was recorded on a fucking toaster, there's the exception.
I'm with you. I'm okay with re-recording demos or songs that didn't get the proper care that even out of their mouths, they thought that those songs didn't get the treatment that they deserved. And so they just did them better. And so, but basically like putting out an album of re-recordings of songs that are already on albums, like that's just lazy as fuck to me. And I'm just like, well, I guess you needed to put something out for your record label or whatever. Who knows?
It's usually label pressure.
But in this case, it's the fact that you can't just go out and buy the Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny, the original demo. This is I very welcomed. So and to be fair, I want their next album to be a complete re-recording of Bowl of Chile or whatever. Their second
Bowl of Chile, man.
Or however you say it. So I just want the thing is they're unpredictable, so they're not going to do that if they do another thing. But I would absolutely love that. Like just re-record those 4 demos because the second demo is like mostly like ska music and shit. And so I'm like, awesome, perfect. Let's keep going with this.
I want to acknowledge a pattern as well. The Patton pattern.
Oh,
hear me out, right? Starts out doing full-blown death metal shit, right? If over time gets known for being in hard rock metal zone.
Yeah.
Right? Things peter off with Faith No More. Dude starts Tomahawk, which is kind of a modern alt metal sort of thing, obviously with a twist. But then motherfucker does Phantomas, does Peeping Tom, lends himself to a shitload of other projects that, for the most part aren't metal related.
Yeah.
But then we've begun in recent years with stuff like Dead Cross, and Dead Cross
who have a new
thing
album coming out. Yeah, we just jinx.
Yeah,
I'm
so
very
I feel
excited
like
because that 30-second clip, I was just like, take my fucking money right now.
it's like Patton got wind of everybody saying, yeah, he's like abandoned metal completely, and now he's like, now's my chance, and he's just putting out as much thrashy fucking stuff as he possibly can.
Yeah,
and I love that. I love that things come full circle, and it's like, I remember initially I think he was apprehensive about reforming Faith No More, but when he did, he said something along the lines of, do you know what, I was afraid it would become a nostalgia act, but in actual fact, it's okay to be proud of something you've done in the past and keep moving forward with it, and I think it's cool that you have such a back catalog, kind of an archive of his evolution too, because yeah. With that though, let's talk about the songs on Rage and Wrath.
Bam.
Also, real quick, sorry, it's good to see him getting back to things as well, because he took a bit of a mental health break.
Yeah, he posted that message about how he had to drop off of a tour for mental health issues, and but there wasn't an explanation about how bad he was doing or what actually was going on, which is fine. That's his private life. But, and there's been no like, okay, guys, I'm back. It's just, now there's been you see things. I don't know if he's the one that runs his social media, because there's a Mike Patton page, but usually whenever he posts something, it does feel like it's something from a person. So clearly he's made his way back, and I'm hoping he's doing a lot better. But just the fact that there's music coming out, if he doesn't want to fucking tour ever again, I fucking understand that. He doesn't have to. But if new music coming from him, even if it's stuff that doesn't necessarily hit for me, doesn't matter. I just like the fact that the guy's still doing it. So yeah.
Damn right. So yeah, Grizzly Adams is a cool opening instrumental.
Yeah.
But then you get to Anarchy Up Your Anus, which is short and sweet flurry of thrash,
which has
Anarchy up your anus, Anarchy up your butt. Yeah, I fucking love that.
It's got probably my favorite sample ever used in anything, because it's on the original demo too. Yeah. Where the song builds up at the beginning, and there's that part where usually you'd have like a Tom Araya going, yeah, or somebody going, go, or something. Yeah. But instead they take this sound effect from an album that I had when I was a kid. It was a Disney like haunted house sound effect album. And the sound is like, it's always been really weird to me. It's like I go, oh, and they use that when the song kicks in. And I've always been like, that is fucking genius. That's like one of the best samples I think I've ever heard in anything. So,
hell yeah. I mean, I love these song titles, man. Raping Your Mind. They made a career out of that. Like, there's so many cool moments in it. Like, also those descending guitars always get me there.
Yeah. I can't go that
way. Like, you can tell what bands they were into, but they had their own demented take on it.
Yeah.
Hypocrites / Habla Español o muere.
O muere.
O muere, that's the one.
Which once again, I'm going to interject here. Before this album ever came out, the first thing that they put out as a band was a cover of the Exploited song USA, which the chorus of the song is "Fuck the USA, fuck the USA," and I love that song and that Exploited album, and that alongside them doing this Spanish version of "Speak English or Die." I'm one of those people that like I immediately go for the comment section on social media, just waiting for people to lose their fucking minds. And of course, it was a whole bunch of like, "Oh, you guys are woke now. You're woke now, huh?" Fucking stupid. Like, so I apologize to like the pretentious assholes, because you guys are annoying, nowhere near as annoying as those fucking people. So I mean, there are annoying people all over the world. Most of them don't listen to our show, which is good. Some of them do. But you guys, the peanut butter platypuses, you guys are like top tier. So don't worry, I'm not talking about any of you. But
on the other hand, we got the peanut butter pieces of shit that we have mentioned in the past.
Yeah, but they don't
talk about them.
They don't last very long. Although there may be some hate listening. I don't know. There are people that I've learned that like just love to listen to shit that they hate. And I'm like, well, I guess maybe we got some of those fans. If you're hate listening, drop us a line. oldheadpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway.
Hey, boss, fuck you, man.
But yeah, I love the fact that they took Speak English or Die by SOD and then did it where it's Speak Spanish or Die, I love that mostly because of the fact that I think I've said this before on one of these episodes. I feel like about 85% of people that love the first SOD album don't understand that it's supposed to be ironic. They think that it's like
fuck the Middle East.
Back when you could just say whatever you wanted before all this woke bullshit. I'm like, no, it's not. They don't. I mean, even though the vocalist, the MOD guy, seems like he didn't understand that it was ironic. It's not serious, folks. So anyway, I love shit like this, and once again, that's just in the brain of Patton and Mr. Bungle doing something like this.
One of my favorite things
on it.
Oh, I was just going to say one of my favorite things on that album is I think it's the Ballad of Jimi Hendrix, and it's just you're dead.
You're dead. Yeah. It's like that's one of like my favorite like short tracks ever made, just because it makes me laugh every time, because it's so dumb and just kind of, some people would be like, it's very mean spirited. I'm like, well, that's
kind of fucking rude.
It's funny.
I like the one where it's like, which one is it? The fuck's that noise? Like, and they just try to play a song. I don't know what it is, man. I don't know what the fucking noise is. It's been a while. I need to revisit that one. We could do that on an episode of that thing we were talking about, where we weren't necessarily going to rank stuff, and we were going to talk about shit.
Yeah, we can let people in on the fact that we have an idea for doing episodes. What was the name that I came up with?
Trying to rank sideline.
It rhymed. It was C&R sidebar. It's going to be us. Whenever we decide that we want to talk about something else that isn't ranking, it doesn't really matter what it is. We're going to occasionally do episodes where it's just like, hey, let's just talk about this. And then it's going to be called C&R sidebar. And I don't know when we're doing the first one of those, but eventually we'll do one. But I like that we have that option. Not that we need it, because we talk about whatever the fuck we want anyway, but it's nice to just be like, hey, we don't have to rank anything. Let's just have a discussion. But maybe it'll fucking blow up on our faces and we'll be like, man, we needed the structure. Anyway, that's a thing that so we could easily talk about SOD or other kind of, well, I'd like to call it a one-off album, because I think that it would be a way better album if they had never revisited it and never got back together to do shows, but that's their prerogative. They do whatever they want. But yeah, we could easily do an episode talking about albums like that, which would be cool. But anyway, sorry, bringing us back in to the Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny demo.
Cool. My personal favorite on here is Bungle Grind. I fucking love that. Life is a fucking joke. Do the Bungle Grind. Like that chorus part is just so fun.
Yeah.
Mathematics features the Love is a Fist riff, and the track itself is pretty killer, but I always loved that riff in Love is a Fist, and I always wanted to hear more of it, and to hear it utilized again is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, this would have been the first time it appeared, but like I say, here we go with a track that was new, which is Erasist.
Erasist, my favorite on the album. Like I know it's, knowing me, be like, oh, he likes the thrashier one. I guess there's a little bit of thrash in this, but it's mostly slower. But I just love this song. It's like so cool.
Yeah, it's quite punky too. Like
Yeah.
it's a newly written track for the album, and it's a fucking bop, dude. That racist.
Yeah.
It's almost very British punk.
Yeah.
That chorus, yeah. Spreading the thighs of death. My favorite tempo in thrash is that upbeat but not too fast feel. And there's a few moments in this one that just get that subconscious, headbang out of me, you know, where it's like, oh, it's fast, but there's also a groove to it, and Lost for Words, more killer thrash goodness. Glutton for Punishment.
Well, that's a cover too, by the way. You knew that, right?
Yep.
Lost for Words is a Corrosion of Conformity from the original, or it's hard to like. It's one of the early albums, but I'm like, I think they changed lineups every single album up to a point. But back in the day for Corrosion of Conformity.
Cool. Love a bit of COC, a little bit of cock.
You had to go there.
He's a cock.
It's like we're gonna have some thoughtful discussions about some albums, and then it's gonna be all poo poo pee pee time. All right.
That's gonna be our other podcast, poo poo pee pee time.
Actually, I'm not opposed to that. Actually,
yeah, we need to do like a road trip where we broadcast in every like public toilet in Britain or some shit.
We should just do poo poo pee pee time, and we'll let's approach it like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where we just play the worst possible versions of ourselves that we could possibly play, and that's the whole thing. We will just say the most inappropriate and fucked up shit for the entire podcast. We can't do that because nobody understands context anymore, and so everyone would be pissed off. Not everyone, but the people that wouldn't be pissed off, half of them would be people that would be like, "Oh, why are you listening to us?" Gross.
Oh man. But yeah, that would be really fun.
Yeah.
Glutton for Punishment is just this rapid, unrelenting rip fest. And Sudden Death is just this brutal closing track. It's a really... I think Scott Ian said in an interview, this is the best thrash album no one ever heard. You know?
Yeah.
And he could be right, because this is good.
Yeah. The day that it came out, I remember, like, as soon as I woke up, it was on, because I hadn't gotten the vinyl yet, but it was on Apple Music. I put in my earbuds, and I was sitting in my living room, and I was sitting like on the edge of my couch. I could have like sat back and had some coffee, but no, literally the entire duration of this album, I was like sitting up, and I was just like every single song. I just had such a fun time. I always have such a fun time when I listen to this album. My only gripe, and I know for the most part they stayed true to the original songs, but maybe they could have edited some of them, because I think some of them go on a little bit too long, or some parts go on a little bit too long, or are repeated too much. But that's just, once again, that's me nitpicking an album that was one of my favorites of the year. And on top of that, the fact that a re-recording of a 35-year-old demo that was made by a bunch of cheap teenagers, the fact that it came out in 2020 and is more interesting than most of what passes for thrash metal these days, like, that says a lot. So, I'm still always out there. There are some great fucking thrash bands out there, but it is few and far between. And most of it is like, oh, Steven, you're going to love this band. And I'm like, no, because I didn't love the other 40 bands that they sound exactly like, with the exact same production, mind you, and the same riffs and the same kind of vocalist. So no. So, but some people just want everything to be one thing all the time. And for those people, I salute you. And I wish that I could be you, because I think life would be much more simpler if I didn't expect bands to try.
Yeah. I wish I was like you, easily amused. That always comes into my head when I think about that sort of stuff.
God, thanks, Kurt. That is a fucking great line. I've always known that line, but now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, that's one of my favorite Nirvana songs. And I'm like, yeah, Sometimes I do wish that my brain, I wish that I was a little more simple-minded, because I feel like I would be happier. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to get really deep, but
and like, you know, it's hard sometimes to articulate to the casual music fan that when you've heard as much music as people like you and I have,
yeah,
you hear stuff that pops up again. Oh,
are you making an appearance in the show? Okay, bye. Do you need something? What? Go get one. Okay, bye.
This is Cranked and Ranked Feet Your Daughter.
That was my daughter, ladies and gentlemen. She just wants to have a soda, and I'm like, well, go get one. I'm not even going to edit that out. I'm going to tell her. And thanks for being on my show.
we had our first. That's our first guest, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
We've guested on other shows, but I don't think we've ever had a third.
Dude, I've been trying to get her to be on my shit for years, and she's not interested in it at all. But but I'm like, man, I see all these other videos. I'm like, oh, there's other people are doing stuff with their daughters, and it's fun. I'm like, come on. But nope, she wants no part of it. So that's fine.
Fuck you, Dad. You're lame.
Anyway, where were we? Music fans like us. We were talking. You started talking about us, that we listen to a lot of music. We've also made music. It's perfectly okay if you're a casual music listener, meaning you own a small amount of albums and most of the time you put it on and you're doing something else. Whereas we're more active music listeners, which is you put things on, you're very involved with the music that you listen to. And I've been that way for almost 40 years. So that's a long time.
Here's a good example. There's two types of music fan in my family, because I'm from a very musical family.
Yeah.
Right beside me here, there's a cupboard there and there's a shelf there.
Yeah.
Stacked to the brim with vinyl CDs and tapes.
Yeah.
Right? Most of that are individual albums from a band's discography, and very often I have all or almost all of their albums.
Yeah.
Right? Take a walk. Two rooms across, you've got my mum's CD shelf, which is compilations and greatest hits albums. That is a casual music fan. I am kind of in deep. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think the more music you listen to, the less bullshit you tolerate.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's starting to become a little bit more confusing to me, because like it's like anyone that just wants to have the greatest hits. Like I actually understand that, because everyone can appreciate and enjoy music, but some people just don't give a fuck. It's like this. It's like how I feel when people get really like up their own ass about movies, and I'm just like, they're just fucking movies. But that's just because I love movies, but that's not my thing. That's not the thing that I get lost in. So, but I still expect somebody to like understand that I enjoy what I enjoy, and it doesn't fucking matter. Same thing goes for other kinds of music fans. But then I think that the reason why we do this show is because we're both people that, it's like that meme where like it's the couple in bed and the woman's like, he's probably thinking about other women. And then you go over to the guy and it's always something just like obsessing over some, and that's me. It's always like, oh my God, they released this album like a year apart from the other album. And yes, it was such a huge progression. Like those are the things that are constantly in my head. So that's why we have to talk. And that's why we bring this different energy to this, I guess. And also why, maybe, you're probably right. Maybe that is why we're more like, come on, if it's been done 100 times, don't do it again. You've
said it quite a few times before, and it's that thing of like a prime example. It's a good test of like, if you listen to like an old school thrash album, right? The amount of different songs on it, right? Whereas compare it to the saturation of bands saying, well, we got to have a at least a couple times on the record. Like, it's like, come on.
Otherwise, it's not thrash, is it?
Yeah. Like, do a variation or something, you know?
Well, I think it's a lot of people I think a lot of people for some reason have I don't know, have a blurred view of music. And so that's why a lot of people will say things like, just to bring up our favorite band again, people will say like, Metallica used to just make thrash metal. And I'm like, no, go to fucking album number 2.
Yeah.
There's like what, 2 actual thrash songs on that album? Like but everyone likes to have this weird, I guess it's rose-colored glasses of what bands are, and they forget that like so many of these bands, not only did they put out albums that for the most part were, a lot of them were varied with different types of songs and different approaches to songs. Sometimes their albums progressed in a way where they did an album that was very different from the one before. But that's all become passé or some word that fancy people use. So nowadays everyone's like, well, no, that's not real metal. If you do different things, metal is metal. It's almost like metal has become like the fucking the search for the Aryan race. Like all thrash metal must be blonde haired and blue eyed and white. That's what we want. And but that's what it is. It's literally just like everything must be one way all the time. And that's fucking boring. And some of that music that's very straightforward is enjoyable, but don't expect me to praise it. It'll just be me going, yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I think the problem is nowadays there's like, it's never been easier to make an album, right? It's never been easier to make an album.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, there's a lot more competition, and with competition comes saturation, and with saturation, music kills itself time and time again. That is how history repeats itself. You look at the 80s glam metal scene, right? As much as I loved it, there were far too many of the same thing in the early 90s, and that's like a lot of people blame grunge for killing hair metal, and that's an idea I used to subscribe to, whereas I think grunge was the final nail in the coffin. I think when Appetite for Destruction came out, there was a changing of the guard, and you had some dirty hair metal show up, and then grunge and the record labels killed it really by flooding the market with the same thing.
Yeah, that whole scene, it was kind of like it was all these bands who were all dancing perilously close to the edge of a cliff. And then they got closer and closer to the edge of a cliff. Some of them fell off on their own, but then all of a sudden, here comes Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and they just went boop and just knocked everybody off the cliff. So they were already on the edge of disappearing. But I mean, grunge didn't help. But the same thing was happening in the thrash scene too, though. There's so many bands just also ran thrash bands from the late 80s and early 90s. And honestly, I love a lot of those bands, but that's because I'm a big fan of that original, because people like to say like second wave thrash. I'm like, to me, the first wave of thrash is basically anything that started from the early 80s all the way to the early 90s, like that first 10-year span. So I love all of that stuff, even the stuff that's real basic bitch thrash metal. Doesn't matter. I really enjoy it, but that's more of me liking the history of it and liking the idea of that scene first coming up and becoming really big. I don't know where I was going with that, but thrash metal also started to get oversaturated. So a lot of the bands expanded their sound. Metallica being one of them. You name it, fucking Flotsam and Jetsam, like, across the board, like a lot of these bands. Well, yeah, that's definitely them. Some would say they went too far. But yeah, so it's just a natural thing that happens. But you are right. But it is really weird that these days, you're right, that there's a whole lot of competition. But if there is that much competition, why is there not more of an attempt to stand out? Like, it's like, we're going to have a similar sounding band name with similar looking artwork, with a similar sounding production over riffs that are not very different from other bands. And then to top it off, we have a vocalist that just does sort of the same shit that many other vocalists already do. Like, why is that the norm? I don't understand why anybody says that's okay. You know, we're fine with just doing that. Like, that blows me away, because even if you go back to, we've talked about it, you know, Metallica doesn't sound like Megadeth, who doesn't sound like Anthrax, who doesn't sound like Slayer. Skip a few years ahead. What?
Sorry, you froze there for a second. It's all good now.
I'm back now.
You're back now.
Okay,
sorry,
but at the same time, you know, Soundgarden didn't sound like Nirvana, who didn't sound like Pearl Jam. Cannibal Corpse doesn't sound like Obituary, who didn't sound like Deicide. Like, it's all these different scenes. But if you remember, the scenes come up, and even in the beginning, there's a desire to have your own voice, and I don't know where that went. I mean, there are some bands doing it. I'm not gonna completely, you know, give a blanket assessment of like all metal, but an alarming amount of metal is just so like, whatever. Okay, we started a band. This is good enough. Let's put it out. You know, I'll
say like bands like Gojira, fuck yeah, because Gojira sound like Gojira. I'll even say Ghost have their thing. I like Ghost. I think they got some killer songs. There are good bands nowadays, but the thing is, there's such a divide now between really killer but popular stuff.
Yeah,
really killer but way underground stuff, and just this sea of mediocrity in the middle.
Yeah,
that is like, okay, X band, all on the same bill. You may have one subtly different to the other, but like, and you know, I have my stylistic biases. My ears like what they like.
Yeah.
You can't like everything. You can't please everybody.
Yeah.
For me, the defining characteristic that makes me want to listen to a lot more older bands than newer ones is because they had more unique personalities, simply put. Like, there are so many metalcore bands from the last 10 to 15 years that you could play to me, and I'll be like, I don't know, that just sounds like Killswitch Engage, but not as good.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
But I mean, to be fair, this isn't just in the metal world. Like, you hear there's a lot of that really boring, like garage rock type shit that's out there that everybody's doing, and then indie rock bands or pop punk bands or whatever, they're all just treading water. And so it leads me to believe that the overall consensus from the fans is we don't want different. We want the same. I want to be a really big fan of 5 bands who are interchangeable. And that's weird. So
you have to wonder if algorithms have anything to do with that. Like, say streaming, right? People want stuff categorized so that they can just jam a bunch of different artists into a playlist, and it's like, well, this all sounds the same, so what are the artists going to think? Oh, well, they want us to sound like that, let's do that. Because
that is true. Because the idea of genre naming a genre, or what subgenre something fits in, I don't know why that's so important now, but I guess that's part of it, the fact that the subgenre and that those things have become so important to some people, whereas back in the day, it was all metal. Like there was no, you know, the idea of the big 4 didn't come up until like years, maybe in the late 90s, I think was that was when it started happening. But like, I never looked at Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer and said, those are thrash metal bands. I never thought that, because I was just like, well, this song has, you know, this is thrash metal. This part sounds like thrash metal. It was in, so, but that's, maybe, I think maybe that leads into your algorithm idea of where, if you really are trying to find a way to, like, you have to have a descriptor for something, and you want your descriptor to be in a particular area, then all of a sudden all the bands in that particular area
every day.
Yeah. It's like, it's like a conveyor belt of crap. And
Yeah.
it's all, but it's just because it's become so important to fit into a category that that's all that matters now. I think we just fucking nailed it right here. It's young people ruining shit. No, I'm just kidding.
Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
Yeah. But I've said it before. I think that's why our podcast, not to pat ourselves on the back, works so well because we are an older gentleman. I'll fucking be 45 in March, and then a younger gentleman. You'll be 25 eventually. You're 24 at this point, but
I am.
The fact that there's that divide between the two of us, this discussion I think is more important than just two 20-somethings talking about music. Because I'm just like, well, what are you really accomplishing there besides keeping the wheel spinning of the shit that's already going on? So there you go. Take that little chunk and send it to your buddies and be like, this is why you should listen to Cranked and Ranked, because eventually they won't even talk about the goddamn band that they're ranking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how are we gonna land this plane? Because we got another half of discography.
We're just gonna. It's just like Mr. Bungle. We're gonna abruptly shift over to do it. But number 3, Raging Wrath of the sorry. I think we finished with Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny, right? Our number 3.
Yeah, we've wrapped that one up.
Yeah, really, really fun album. Absolute blast. I love it. But if you're actually thinking about what Mr. Bungle is known for, then the next 2 albums we're going to talk about are way better representations, and overall fucking masterpieces. Really, let's see if we're going to be neck and neck the whole way. What is your number 2?
I think we are gonna have an identical ranking for the first time in a while. Would that be our first fully identical one? Because
could be, yeah.
I think the top half of the Helmet discography was the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, my number 2 is California.
Oh shit! No.
Oh, damn, dude.
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry, I gave mine away already, but no, we are not. This is cool. I mean, we had to switch it up somehow. All right, sir. So California, go ahead.
Hold up. I'm truly surprised by that.
Hey.
Hold up. Hey. Smoke weed every day.
All right.
There it is. Cool. Yeah. So my number 2 is California, and probably their most accessible album. Sure. And now that I step back and think about it, it is their most song-focused album.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, I can see how I kind of missed that with you, but I'm gonna jump right in.
Yeah.
Sweet Charity. Bum, bum, bum. It feels like a tongue-in-cheek yet totally sincere nod to Western music.
Yeah.
And with Mr. Bungle's Bond theme on acid touch going on, I fucking love this. So much of this feels really cinematic. Like none of them knew they were robots. Feels like a Disney villain song where he describes his evil plans to a spooky rockabilly song,
Yeah.
And I love that jump back, what shock attack part. That's so fun. Especially that
with the weird sound effects and stuff. Yeah. That drives home that real sort of cartoon aspect you're talking about, where you have some sound effects where you're like, that just sounds like straight out of fucking Looney Tunes.
Yeah, man. Like this album definitely feels like Bugs Bunny grabbed a guitar and just started fucking going nuts. But like, man, then you get stuff like Retro Vertigo. Yeah. Good God, the melodies on this are awesome, especially the chorus. Like, considering this is the same band that wrote Girls of Porn, like, it's wild to think that they would do something like this that still has a weird edge to it, but it genuinely feels sophisticated, like, because there's like there is a youthful energy to their debut, whereas at this point it feels like, yeah, I'm gonna act like I'm batshit insane, but I'm gonna do it while wearing a fucking suit. Thank you, sir. You know, shit. The air conditioned Nightmare is fucking rad. I blasted this bouncy banger through a crowded street with everyone looking at me, and I had a dead serious face on with aviators the entire time.
Yep.
And the fucking looks I got were priceless. They were like, who is this? Oh man, Ars Moriendi. I probably butchered that. Metal riffs and Eastern melodies are a match made in heaven, and that part at like 1 minute 32 is too good. Like,
yeah.
Oh,
the whole
so
song.
Good.
That song to me is like it's like the go-to track for me for when I'm trying to explain Mr. Bungle to somebody and they're like, well, how weird could this possibly be? I'm like, hold on a second. And I just, because that song is like, you know, what is it, 4 minutes? And I feel like they just throw everything in there, every possible idea and I think that one is just a Mike Patton song. I think he wrote that whole thing.
That's
which
wild,
is
man.
insane. But yeah, that's like the best example of like, yeah, if you're into this, then okay, then you'll probably like the majority of what they do.
But here's the thing, right? Pink Cigarette.
Oh shit, yeah.
Seems to be the most beloved of this album's tracks, and it is the song on Spotify with the highest play count of any of their stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this song is the highest played Mr. Bungle song at nearly 6 million plays.
Wow. I mean, I love this song, but I had no idea. Was it in something? Was it, every time that happens, I go, was it in a TV show? Was it used somewhere?
It might have been, but to be fair, I do remember seeing a like fan-made music video or something on YouTube a while back, and that pops up right when you get Mr. Bungle, I think. So yeah, it's a really good song. But like, I remember I always used to get like crazy anxiety because like at the end of the song with that like beep that like gradually comes in, because I was like, I used to drive to that album a lot, and I was like, I'm still trying to figure out, is that in the song or is there something horribly wrong with my car? Like, like, is this thing gonna blow up anytime soon? Oh man, Golem 2, the Bionic Vapor Boy, is as joyful as it is unsettling. The Holy Filament is this dreamy soundtracky song. Sorry.
And take two.
You ever seen that meme real quick that goes like, Bond's name's the James. What? James. Bames non's having a stronk. Call a bondulance, and it's just like James Bond trying to fucking.
That's one of the only things that like the things that really scare me in life are like that losing control of your brain. And your ability to speak and stuff like that. Like that, those are the things that like, oh man, I would never want, because I'm so in my own head all the time anyway. If all of a sudden that wasn't working just right
a minute ago.
But that's insane.
Yeah, like I always think of the dude from the One video from Johnny Got His Gun. And I think that would just be horrible. But yeah. It's where are we at? Vanity Fair feels like a beautiful song that's buried under a deep layer of sarcastic activity. There's like so much packed into every moment. There's like fucking 9 things going on at once, and it's like, if like 4 of those things weren't there, this would just be a normal suave kind of classic pop song. But like, because it's Mr. Bungle, they were like, nah, we're gonna throw some shit in there to make the listener think, what the fuck is happening? And then pretty much all I've got down for Goodbye Sober Day is like but when it kicks in with the
oh yeah,
like I just think, oh damn,
yeah. Sometimes I'm like, is this the best album closer ever? It's just so, it's cool.
A good one. Ah man, that's the thing though. This album is batshit nuts by normal music standards, but it's definitely Mr. Bungle's most accessible album.
Yeah,
and it has what normal people would consider songs on it, you know.
I consider them songs, but
yeah, it's damn dude, like even going through that track listing I get excited because I think wow, you know, like how well put together that fucking album is, dude. But there is one above it that I really like, and to be fair, I mean, I think we can just move on over to that one because it's your number 2 and it's my number 1. So
yeah,
let's just talk.
Yeah, my number 2 is the debut their debut full-length album, Mr. Bungle from 1991. I already talked about like my first hearing this album. It was a bit over my head, but quickly I got into what was going on and enjoyed it. I feel like, you know, this one goes higher up, you know, Disco Volante goes last. And I think I said it on that one, that this one, the genre bending feels more natural.
Yeah.
While at the same time still having like a definite sort of unpredictability in it, while maintaining songs. I think that this album, a lot of them just feel like songs, and I remember the aspects of the songs as a whole. Could be because, you know, of multiple listens over the years. Unfortunately, I can't take it out of my brain and listen to it again fresh because it's been, you know, 30 plus years. But I think that it's always felt like this is the one album that it always felt like there was some sort of sense to the chaos and the madness of it all. Like, I don't know. I think that's probably why I thought they were just so, or I think that they're just such talented dudes, because if you take some of the ideas and if you take a step back, you go, some of this actually makes a lot of sense in the way that it goes. But like you said, to other people, this would be just a huge mess. Probably a lot of these songs. Also important to point out, as much as I guess we're not supposed to acknowledge this album is insanely influential to a lot of metal musicians. You don't hear your jazz saxophonist going, actually, I'm very influenced by Mr. Bungle. No, it's because at the end of the day, this is a metal album. And so much of what they do, more so on this album than on Disco or California, there's a lot of distorted guitars and riffs in this music. So, but once again, I guess, you know, some people would want us to think that it's because they're making fun of metal. Fine. And there's just an aggressive nature to this album that I'd call it metal, experimental for sure. But a big thing about this album for me that I love is the fact that even today it still has an element of rediscovery. Like, you get deeper into the album and there's always moments where my brain just kind of goes, oh, I forgot about that. That's badass. And so it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving from Mr. Bungle. So it went at number 2 because I feel like if you can take this idea, the idea of what Mr. Bungle is, which is a band that have always just gone with whatever they felt, whether they're like, this is going to be metal, this is going to be ska, we're going to be jumping from genre to genre, randomly throughout a song, whatever it is that we're going to do. The fact that they could take that whole idea and then create what you just talked about being an accessible album, that to me is a fucking feat in itself. So Mr. Bungle goes number 2 because, like, when it comes to the more chaotic version of what they do, I think this is the best representation of it, and it's still very enjoyable. But it didn't go number one because I still look at California, which I'll talk about later, and I look at it and I go, this is beyond anything I would ever even start to think about putting together. And the fact that, well, I'll get into that album. My number 2 is Mr. Bungle from 1991. Let's I'm going to push the ball over to you so you can continue talking about Mr. Bungle from 1991, which is your number 1. I don't know why I got loud there. Mr. Bungle album.
I mean, damn, dude, this was the first Mr. Bungle album I heard, and it just blows my fucking mind every time to this day that it exists, you know? Like, quote unquote, otherwise known originally as Travolta, but renamed after a legal threat, I believe, is the only Bungle song from their original run in the 90s to have a music video. But like, the music video was banned by MTV for featuring a ceiling of corpses hanging by their necks.
Going back to the Travolta thing, how was he able to take legal action? Is he the only person in the world whose last name is Travolta? Like that baffles me.
Like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he was just like, maybe someone snuck a Bungle cassette onto his plane, and he was like, "Oh, this isn't a good representation of what I am," you know. Yeah.
I would much prefer to be known as the guy from Look Who's Talking. Because if you remember, before he was reborn with Pulp Fiction, he was the guy who was a star in the 70s and then was more known for Talking Babies. So
I got Look Who's Talking 1 and 2 on VHS behind me somewhere. But yeah, it's a great opener, and I love that breakdown riff when shit just gets real with that. Dun, 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 bat. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 burp, bum, 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 bum. Like all of like the little components in there, but like that massive carnival stab, like over the top. To this day, that's still one of the heaviest moments in any song I've ever heard, because I think, what? Yeah. That is insane, dude. Slowly Growing Death. I love how this song builds, and the melodies are really memorable. It's a very dynamic song. It starts building and building and building. Squeeze Me Macaroni. Like, damn, dude. Patton is just spitting bars on this track.
So like this song, and certain, I think it's really only on this album, but just like we could, because eventually we'll get into it. But the feud with Anthony Kiedis, from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Now, every time I hear this song and a portion of this song, I go, it sounds like something that would have been off the second Red Hot Chili Peppers album.
Sex rap. Sex.
And so it's interesting that like the feud came from Anthony Kiedis, I guess, because of his stage persona. When he had longer hair, he thought he was in the rapping part. I guess he just thought he was. That whole thing confuses me because I was a fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers too, and I never saw Mike Patton and went, "Oh, he's kind of like Anthony Kiedis." Never fucking made that connection. I don't know why. I think because if you really look at what they're doing, they're both, it's different. Just because there's funky elements and metal elements in both of the things. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not either one of them. So who the fuck am I?
The one thing I will say, and I am on Patton's side in the feud, like if there is anything, because like I think
I'm on it, especially if what they said is true. Because what they said was, years later, Mr. Bungle was supposed to be on a couple festivals that it just so happened the Chili Peppers were playing too. And the rumor is that Anthony Kiedis had them removed from all these shows. Now,
Yeah.
whether or not it was him or the management coming to him and saying, you guys might want to take them off because this, I don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason to that. But if that's true, then absolutely I'm on the Mike Patton side of it, because I'm just like, how fucking childish is that?
Yeah.
You
Did
know,
you see
but
you've seen the Revenge show they played, right? Where they went on stage as the Chili Peppers and just started doing impressions of them and shit. But like, well, where was I going with that?
You were saying you're on the Patton side of things.
I was on the Patton side of things. The only thing I've ever heard on a Faith No More recording, for example, the only thing I ever heard remotely similar to Anthony Kiedis and his style. Have you ever heard that really early version? It's like a demo version that's not even really on any official releases. It just floats around. But there is an early demo of Falling to Pieces with Mike Patton on it, and there is a rap verse in it.
Oh, I don't know if I've heard that.
Yeah, it's really cool because you do hear it and you think, okay, there is a bit of a Chili Peppers vibe there, but that could be said for any funk rock band in the late 80s, you know?
I mean, there's still a little bit of rapping on that song before the chorus.
But like said rap verse is very Chili's like that part. That didn't even make it to the album. So I'm just thinking, you know, if anything, I think they heard that part and they were like, there's already some guys doing that. But you know, we could speculate for days on that shit because you know we're not them. But
it's weird because from other accounts, the Chili Peppers guys are all really good dudes. So it's strange. It seems out of character. Once again, we don't know. You can never really know people in huge bands and how not only how their minds work, but also how driven they are by their management and lawyers and record labels and whatever. Either way, like there was no controversy with Mr. Bungle. So that they shouldn't have been removed from any shows. I mean, even like there was even that thing where I think I read that they postponed the release of California because of Californication and they didn't want to have to compete with each other. I'm like, well, there's really no competition. Those people are not listening to Mr. Bungle. But it's just weird because it's one of those things where I would like to know, but the only way to know is to crawl inside the minds of the individuals involved back when it was happening. Because at this point, everything's taken with a grain of salt. Because it's like, well, you know, if from the facts I have, it seems like Anthony Kiedis was being a child, but I don't know. And so that's just unfortunate. That always bums me out when it's just like, well, why do people have to act that way, or why, or if it's not their fault, if it's management fault or whatever, why do those fucking people have to do that sort of shit? It just, there's, I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is. But I think I read, it may have been Trey who was talking about how, you know, that led to the demise of Mr. Bungle originally, because they had all these plans and all this like money to continue coming from these big shows. And then all of a sudden these were yanked out from under them. And so they already had their internal struggles going on with working together on something like California and the stuff that they did. But the fact that led, if it was a catalyst or whatever to the band ending, I'm like, man, that's just fucking awful.
That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah. Anyway, so back to Mr. Bungle.
So Carousel is just demented ska metal. Love it. Egg is, to me, the crowning glory of this album. So much happens in that song that just rules. And it's such a journey. It's like 10 minutes fucking long. There's a lot of like movie samples and stuff that like tie this album together as well. And like any moment where there's not music, there's some cinematic stuff going on.
Or somebody taking a shit or
something. Stub a Dub is. Remember that Tom and Jerry thing I said earlier? This
Yeah.
same thing applies here.
Mm-hmm.
My ass is on fire. Speaking of shit, every time I take a regretfully hot shit from spicy food the night before, I put this song on my phone because if I'm gonna be in that much pain, I'm at least gonna laugh at it, and it's a good soundtrack. And I'm kind of talking to myself in the moment. You knew all along. God damn it! But yeah. Also, that riff that shows up.
Yeah. There are always like riffs that sneak in that I'm just like, that's fucking great. That sometimes those are riffs that you could take that and write an entire metal song out of or something.
Yeah.
And that they just have them in one part of the song, but
yeah. Man, like I was showing my friend one of my bandmates the song Girls of Porn the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I was just driving around and I was like, hey, check this out. Stuck it on. He made nothing of the sex noises at the start because he thought, it's just a sleazy rock song. Like, that awesome riff immediately goes into like fucking Police Squad mode with the
yeah.
And all of a sudden, I gave him zero context going into it, and then I just start singing along to all the words. Yeah, it's like start just singing about whacking off, and it was just like, what the fuck, man? What are you doing? It was really funny. Love's a Fist, some crushing riffage in this one, but there's so much other stuff too to this song. It's like you said, you could take that riff and write a whole metal song around it, but nah, these guys are like, you're gonna hear it twice tops, you're gonna fucking like it. And then at the end you get Dead Goon. They saved their weirdest and most ambient track for last, because this one, like, I don't know how to describe it other than it's much more soundscapey than like the rest of the full tracks on the album. But it's how the album flows, and I love this album, and I listen to it right the way through because there's not a single moment on it that isn't entertaining.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
So let's take a flight back over to California to wrap this up.
My number one, California from 1999. This may have been my number one album of the 1999 episode we did. I don't remember where it fell. I think it might have been. So this one, if you're focusing on my personal taste, this one's a more focused album and more song oriented, and most accessible, but also I just think it's their most well-crafted album, because if you can give me songs that to some people would just be complete and utter chaos, followed by a song that's like absolutely beautiful, that to me is just amazing. And like I said, just the fact that they took all of these Mr. Bungle aspects and in some cases took them a step further, in other cases honed in on something. And I say they because I think that in this case there was some individual songwriting and stuff like that, but just the fact that it's almost like a mixtape of these various aspects of Mr. Bungle that all at the same time, every time I listen to it, it feels like there's some sort of like cryptic musical theme that is there. It's there, but it's not apparent to where you could point at it and go, here's the theme. I don't know what it is. It's sequencing or whatever. And I also love the fact that they didn't go for the same thing again, because they could have just done another album where everything's all over the place all the time for an entire album. To me, it's much more, I'm the kind of person that like, I will listen to something like Disco Volante and I'll go, I understand the patience and skill that, that it took to put this together. At the same time, you bring to me an insanely memorable hooky 3-minute pop song. I also look at that and go, that to me is just and on a different side of things, just as impressive. So if you can meet in the middle and have some stuff where I could just go, I don't know how I would ever even fucking start to learn how to write something like that, alongside with something where I go, that song's just fucking gorgeous, then you got me. You've got me with this album. And so that's why it goes number one for me. It's just got, I don't know, to me, it's my go-to Bungle album just because it's got all of those aspects. And not only do I think it's their best album, it's the best album that they've ever done, Mr. Bungle.
You sound like Jimmy from South Park. Come on, guys. Come on.
I really do think that if you think about this album, it is like an unequaled masterpiece because it's perfect to me, but is there any album that you can compare it to? There are other albums that do the genre hopping thing. Some albums that are crazy and technical with all sorts of, complicated song structures and tempo and timing changes and whatever. But what California is, it's like a unique thing where I'm like, there's no other album that has that same vibe and delivers in the way that this album delivers. It's on an island by itself. And
definitely.
And I mean, you do hear bands that try to do kind of odd stuff, and sometimes it's really cool. Most of the time I'm like, well, it's very cute. But I just think that they fucking nailed it with this album. And the fact that they came back and didn't try to do something like this again, the fact that they just came out with a full-on metal album, that's why I'm still on board with this Mike Patton side project, because if they're gonna be unexpected but also utterly pleasing at the same time, then I'm on board with whatever they decide to do next.
I like the fact that they always deliver on quality, but they're loyal to no one. It's we do what we fucking want, and you'll love it because we're good at what we do.
And the weird thing is, I don't know if maybe I don't know if you've read things about this, but whenever I go look at info about Mr. Bungle, Scott Ian and Dave Lombardo are usually listed as current members of the band. And I'm like, are they considered part of Mr. Bungle now? Because, to me, it was always like, oh, they're getting them for this album and this tour. And which is great. If that's all that they did, that's fine. But now I'm like, are they actually in the band, or are we going to get something different with some different musicians next time? Because I would be really happy either way, because if they just left the Raging Wrath as it is, as a thing that happened with these people, it's beautiful. And whatever they do next, I'm sure is going to be great. But me, especially being a huge fan of Scott Ian, and Dave Lombardo is an amazing drummer. So if they carry that over, I'm just like that. Either way, I'm going to be, very happy. But I don't know if you've heard it, or I mean, who knows if Mr. Bungle is even continuing? They haven't said a fucking word. So,
well, all I can say is any project that has Dave Lombardo on drums, aka Dead Cross, for example, is another thing. And Fantomas as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantomas also had Buzz Osborne from. Yeah.
Yeah. Wild, dude. It's wild that they're, so close, isn't it? It's I know a guy, and it's just the dude from fucking Slayer.
Yeah.
Like the amount of isn't Dave Lombardo joining Testament again?
He's in Testament right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. The amount of you can always count on the drums being fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was kind of bummed that he left Suicidal Tendencies because I liked what he was doing with that band, and now he's in Testament. I'm like, well, I'm probably gonna like this too. So fuck, I don't know, whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, man.
But that Dead Cross for sure. I'm looking forward to that because I loved that last album. And I've heard that this one's going to be produced by Ross Robinson. So I'm just like, all right, let's do it. Let's continue to make metal from people that don't like metal. Whatever. I like it.
Yeah, man. Oh God, my voice keeps cracking, dude. This is like the third one in a row.
It's all right. We're approaching the 2-hour mark here on this one, so we can.
You want fries with that?
we can wrap this up because we did get through the Mr. Bungle discography, which means, as usual, we have to celebrate by this. 3, 2, 1, yay! We did it. What was that?
That was voice crack. Yeah, we did
it. Yeah, we did it. Woo! Just when you thought it was over.
Just when you thought we were done. I'm gonna run that to the ground.
Yeah. I don't care. I love that song.
Yeah. Me too,
anyway,
man.
So yeah, Mr. Bungle. Any closing thoughts about Mr. Bungle?
I mean, dude, when it comes to I didn't get into music to have fucking rules. Mr. Bungle embodies that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And man, I feel the same way having done this episode, how I feel after a Mr. Bungle album. I think, damn, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when I've ever had such a conversation about all of this stuff, and it even looking back through all of the stuff we've talked about, it's like, holy shit, there's so much to dig through. And even with the nearing the 2-hour mark, we scratched the surface of the amount of shit that's on these albums, man.
Yeah, there's no way, especially with people like me and my limited vocabulary. There's only so far I can go before I just start saying things like that thingy they do there with the thingy. It's fucking cool. Because there's a lot of thingies with the thingies that are cool on all their albums.
You know what? I listen to certain other podcasts, like Metal Up Your Podcast, for example. They're both professional touring musicians who make time for a podcast, in between, right? And they'll bust out the music theory, and I'm thinking, thank God I approached this as a fan, because I am not the music theory guy in my band. The other two are. I'm just like, hey, can you put a chunka and a over there? Yeah.
That's literally that's like if we were in a band together, that would be me. I would be like, okay, on this part, can you do a plaka plunka? Can you do that right there?
Yeah. Hey, can you use the whammy bar to do a wee new over on that part?
Oh man. All right.
With that being said, I'm gonna let you land this plane because
we'll land this. So just so everybody knows, I don't even know if you remembered, we're taking next weekend off, so there will be a gap for a week in our episodes, but we'll be back with another fun episode of Cranked and Ranked. Those of you who lasted this long, you are one of the peanut butter platypuses. And if any of you super pretentious Bungle fans made it all the way through, hate listening to us,
just sack.
Just so you know, if you put a whole lot of effort into a YouTube comment where you're pretty much insulting me or Eddie, guess what happens to that? It just gets removed because I have no time for that kind of bullshit. If you want to say something thoughtful about how you feel that may differ from how we feel, absolutely. I'm all about everybody's opinions and everybody's angles on how they view things. But if you're a complete turd about it, you don't even deserve a response from me. But I'm sure none of them are listening. They fucking got tired of us, an hour ago, probably, or more.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. If you're listening via podcast platform of some kind, or watching if you're on YouTube, thanks for the support. Go buy some merch if you are so inclined. There's been a stall on that. Does nobody want shit with our faces on it or my face? I mean, come on. Who wouldn't want these faces on a t-shirt?
Give us money.
Anyway, all right. So that's it. We'll see you in a couple weeks with another new Cranked and Ranked. But for now, as usual, I'm going to throw it over to my good man, Eddie Sparxx, to take us out.
Impotence. Boomerang. Later, dude. Later, dude. Later, dude. Later, dude.
There's no way. I've been trying to put music under all of these, and there's no way that's happening. I'm just going to throw some fucking reverb under that. All right. Bye, everyone.
Later, dude.